Open YouTube today, and the algorithm serves up an overwhelming stream of alerts. You see rising wars, energy spikes, and economic collapse, all blending into a single high-stakes threat right on your screen. The platforms package this information for maximum engagement. A tragic localized factory explosion or a sudden plane crash gets pushed into your feed with the exact same urgency as global oil prices reaching 10-year highs. Consuming this without a filter leads to panicked, reactive decisions. You might start liquidating investments or drastically cutting household budgets based on events that have zero actual bearing on your long-term solvency. You are facing a concrete squeeze between immediate energy price spikes and the long-term costs of transitioning away from fossil fuels. Surviving this requires a calculated allocation of your existing resources. To navigate this economic environment, we have to strip away the emotional noise and isolate the few global signals that actually dictate where your money should go. This 2x2 quadrant chart separates the top stories. The y-axis tracks systemic economic impact, and the x-axis measures direct wallet impact. The bottom left represents the noise quadrant, events with minimal systemic impact and no direct effect on your personal finances. Take this win by Wu Yize at the World Snooker Championship. It is a significant achievement in the sport, and the algorithm promotes it for engagement, but it has no impact on your grocery prices. Now look at the top right, the high-impact signal quadrant. This is where we find escalating tensions in the Middle East, surging global oil prices, and the resulting inflation on basic goods. These threats are grounded in extensive, tangible infrastructure. When conflict threatens the supply chains feeding industrial refinery complexes like this one in the UAE, the entire global energy market reacts immediately. The only news items you should factor into your financial planning are those that directly manipulate fuel supply chains and drive up the cost of daily living. The most immediate macroeconomic threat is the vulnerability of the Strait of Hormuz. When tensions involve the United States and Iran, the routes carrying these heavy tankers are at risk of blockage, triggering an immediate spike in global fuel prices. To evaluate your response, we will use this 3-column comparison matrix, looking at capital input, financial outcome, and systemic trade-off. In this scenario, the required capital input is shifting your portfolio into traditional oil and gas sectors to hedge against geopolitical shocks. The financial outcome is immediate portfolio protection. As global fuel prices surge, these sectors typically offer high dividend yields, helping offset your rising costs at the pump. However, you are entering a bifurcated energy market. Placing heavy bets on traditional oil puts you in direct opposition to broad, government-backed climate policies aiming to phase out fossil fuels over the next decade. That brings us to the systemic trade-off. This strategy leaves you highly vulnerable to sudden diplomatic ceasefires. A peace agreement in the Middle East could crash oil prices overnight, erasing those defensive gains. Parking capital in traditional energy provides an effective short-term shield, but holding those assets long-term exposes you to severe volatility.
Those energy surges trigger a secondary threat: rising costs for transport and food production, leading directly to compounding inflation and global economic uncertainty. The required capital input here focuses on defensive budgeting. You lock in long-term fixed-rate debt for necessities like housing and vehicles, while delaying large discretionary purchases. The resulting financial outcome is a protected monthly cash flow. When inflation spikes basic living costs, your largest monthly obligations remain static, preventing you from being squeezed out of your home. The trade-off is the opportunity cost. Prioritizing cash preservation limits your liquidity, meaning you cannot easily buy into the stock market when geopolitical panic creates potential discount opportunities. Defensive budgeting ensures your household survives an inflation spike, but it also limits your ability to generate rapid wealth during the same period. Beneath the daily noise of accidents and localized conflicts is a much larger macroeconomic signal: a new alliance of over 60 countries pushing to accelerate renewable energy. The capital input required to align with this shift is steep. It requires front-loading significant personal capital to purchase electric vehicles, install home solar panels, or invest in green tech infrastructure. These policies translate into physical reality through large-scale engineering projects already underway globally, pulling billions in government subsidies and institutional investment. The financial outcome is total energy insulation, decoupling your daily living expenses from the volatility of Middle East oil markets. The trade-off is a high liquidity drain. You are tying up significant capital during high economic instability. Following the 60-country alliance is the safest long-term play, but it is strictly reserved for those who can absorb the high upfront costs.
This decision tree maps the path forward. It comes down to one diagnostic question. What is your primary financial constraint? Your monthly cash flow or available capital? Take the pragmatic planner. If you're sensitive to rising grocery and fuel costs, your constraint is monthly cash flow. Your strategy ignores speculation. Focus strictly on locking in fixed-rate debt and taking steps to reduce fossil fuel dependency. For the retail investor with liquid wealth aiming for portfolio growth, your constraint is deploying available capital. Use yields from short-term traditional energy assets to fund aggressive long-term positions in emerging green infrastructure. Choosing a path that does not match your profile is dangerous. If you are a budget-conscious planner and you start gambling on volatile tech stocks because of a news headline, you will rapidly deplete your reserves. Geopolitical events will continue to happen, and media platforms will continually package them as existential threats to keep you clicking. Protecting your finances means ignoring the algorithmic noise and watching where the physical supply chains and government subsidies are actually moving. Choose your strategy: defensive budgeting or the strategic green transition. Execute it, and refuse to abandon your plan because of a trending tragedy. Global instability always creates a significant wealth transfer. Those who objectively plan for the transition, rather than emotionally reacting to the screen, will be the ones who collect on the other side.